Hey, this is Lauren. Welcome to the Afterlight. This is an excerpt from our full-length episode. To listen to the full episode, head to the show notes and follow the link. Welcome to the Afterlight Podcast with me, Lauren Grace, a spiritual podcast full of stories and conversations that prove we're never alone. The Afterlight Podcast aims to inspire and educate. Remember, you are the authority on your own life. I encourage you to run everything through your own filter, to take what resonates, and I also urge you to do your own research and consult with qualified professionals for advice on your personal situation. The opinions shared by guests are their own, and any advice by our guests or by me is not a substitute for professional guidance. Thank you so much for listening, and I enjoy journeying back with you to the afterlight. Enjoy the episode. I remember many years ago, I was taught that, if you wanted to balance the feminine and the masculine, and I think that when you're an entrepreneur and you're a woman in business as well, we sometimes forget that we need to bring in some of the feminine and the masculine, because in business too, there's so much of that masculine energy. And I know that I've sometimes had a bit of a dance with how to bring in the two. And anyway, I remember many years ago, probably even going back like 20 years to be fair, somebody said to me, look at the people around you, and is there anybody that you feel embodies a masculine and a feminine energy and how they're showing up in the world? And can you, in a way, start to emulate some of that? And I think the idea there was that when we can emulate and see somebody like that as a role model, as a mentor, we can start to go, okay, well, what are the actions that I can take to feel and embody that in for myself? So when I'm thinking and reflecting on the priestess energy, I love that as almost like a focal point of going, okay, so if I were going to embody in this priestess energy, how would that look like today? Like, would I wear the shirt that I'm wearing? Would I put on some rouge à lèvres? What would I say to people? How is it that I would stand when I'm in a new environment? And I love the idea of bringing in these conscious connections to these archetypes or to these inspirational figures, and then going, how can that help me to be more of who I am?
Each of us has these different archetypes within us. So embodying the priestess or the goddess or the empress or the queen is not just for those of us who hold this as a professional title or hold this as a business interest or hold this as our own devotion, but like these aspects, like you're saying, there are places of our lives and physical places where you want to step into that version of self. And regardless of whether or not like this is your chosen path, like bringing the priestess and allowing the priestess to wake up within you can just be bringing the feminine face of God into the body, into the mind, into the energy. And one thing that I will say about the balance between the feminine and the masculine, especially as a business owner, I was very masculine in my business when I first started it, as many of us are, where we're like, okay, I can do it. I've always pushed, I've always hustled, I've always made it happen. A lot of us that get into entrepreneurship come from corporate or a structure where we thrived because of that, and we transfer those skills, and we tend to just like rebuild corporate and then have to realize, like, oh, do I really want to like exist in the cage that I left that is now like a cage of my own making? Yes. And that is like truly one of my soulmate clients, where like you've built something successful and you're like, but this is just another cage. And so the priestess and my business owner are two different individuals. And so my divine masculine in my business is things that I build. So the masculine is really the structures, the systems, the container, so that then my priestess, my witch, my energy healer, my quantum navigator, we fill the containers. So, like, my masculine creates the containers. My masculine is the one doing the many chat and doing the funnel and doing the this and doing the that, building the structure in the container, telling me, like, okay, it's going to be 3 calls a month for this amount of time. We're going to do this and this and this. Now you fill it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, here's all my ideas and blah, blah, blah. And then the masculine will go through and like comb through it again. And that for me is my balance. Now, some other business owners, some solopreneurs that I have worked with, mentored, coach, their balance can look completely different. I had a Gemini client who would literally have the conversations as the masculine, as the feminine, back and forth, and have her own little business meeting with her own self. And I would go into my state and get up into our like guides and guardian, and I would listen to their conversations and then like almost mediate the masculine and feminine and show them how to match up on the vibration to get there faster, easier, and more efficiently. So each of us finding that very like Libra season, the balance is not 50-50 for the majority of us. The balance is that like feather on one side and a massive weight on the other. And yeah, they just sit there because of what it means to be balanced as an individual. Those of us ascending, those of us descending, those of us on what I like to call the spiral path, where you're consistently going up into the divinity and then descending down into the humanity. Balance is not what we learned in like our sixth grade science class with the little Grammy grams on there. It looks very different for each of us.
Hi, thanks so much for listening to the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave us a review where you listen to your podcasts and share it with your friends. Thank you. New episodes every Thursday.